10% equity or less to me is negative equity because you have to factor in closing costs, you have to factor in time that it takes to move that property. Hey, part 3 here. So here's the thing. I wanted to share with you equity, okay? And I mentioned that in the training already, but I just want to stress this a little bit more. If somebody has less than 10% in equity, okay, that they're not, first of all, that's not equity, okay? There's too much of, it's too small of a spread for you to play with and to be able to come up with a solution for them. So be careful when people say equity. Anything less than 10% of equity is not something you should be messing with. They should just go list with the realtor or do a short sale, because 10% equity or less to me is negative equity because you have to factor in closing costs, you have to factor in time that it takes to move that property. Okay, I wanted to point that out to you before we get into this training. Let's keep going. So let's keep going here. So it's agreed. It says complicated. How do you JV with someone on the subject to if you decide to keep and rent? Well, these are questions that. Okay, so somebody says you won't get $30,000 on this low of a house very easily from a tenant. Okay, maybe an investor. Why do they need $20,000? All right, great points. Okay, so here's what this means. Okay, great point that Michael brings up. Excuse me. If the way lease options work is that you can take a down payment of, somebody speculating $30,000 on a property, right? Take a down payment of $30,000. You take that $20,000 out of that $30,000. You give it to the homeowner who wants to walk away, right? And then you keep the $10,000. Okay. Now you keep $10,000. That sounds like profit, but remember there's still a $215,000 loan on the property. Now you have to continue to pay $1,100, right, on that loan. You are still responsible for the property, making sure that the loan is up to date, right? So that means you are at the mercy of the person that just gave you $30,000, paying you maybe $1,500 per month, right, for a property that they have an option to purchase. Okay. Now the way some people sell sell lease option is that they will say, hey, that $30,000 will be applicable towards down payment at the end of the lease option once you qualify for mortgage, right? A person that has $30,000 sitting in the bank, right, but they don't have good credit to go get a regular mortgage from the bank, that person typically will probably never qualify. That means they don't care about their credit in the first place. There's a very high chance they will never care about their credit and they will not qualify 2 years from now. But then you're going to say that $30,000 is gone, right? They can turn around and file a lawsuit, okay? Maybe they won't win, but they're going to waste your time, okay? This is, again, additional reasons why I don't like the idea of subject tos or lease options or overly creative strategies. They do exist. Some people make money from them, okay? But the part they're not going to tell you is the litigations that come with that, okay? Lawsuits, having to answer craziness like that. But I get it. In any business, you could be exposed to things like that and you should be ready for that. I'm just saying, for a person that is trying to be a wholesaler, you don't want that kind of headache. But if you don't mind, then it's an option. So Michael is absolutely right that you're gonna get a $30,000 on a house that you say is worth 260. That's above 10%. A person that doesn't keep a credit probably will not have $30,000 in the bank. Okay, so you're probably not gonna get that much. You probably can get 7,000, $10,000, maybe $6,000. In other words, again, that $20,000 is completely out of range, and that's what Michael means. He's completely on point with that. So let's go to the next one. There's a lot that needs to happen when taking over subject to, just to make sure you don't get screwed or the sellers get screwed. This is very important. This is very important to you. Okay, this is actually more in your best interest. Okay, let me blow this up. No, actually, I'm going to keep it that way and I'll blow it up on the video. Okay, all right. So this is in your best interest. Making sure the sellers don't get screwed is in your best interest, because if a seller feels, not just get screwed, but if they feel like they got screwed, they will turn around and waste your time in the court of law. You're not in the business to be going to courts. You're in the business to make money, and you need to keep that clean as possible. When we say a seller gets screwed, trust me, that's your business getting screwed. Okay, so you want to make sure you keep this business as clean from your standpoint. Okay, plus the banks need not to be disturbed. That's what I was talking about. Awaken the sleeping giant. That's the due on sale clause in the mortgage contracts. If the bank finds out the deed on the property has been passed over to somebody else and they haven't been paid off completely, they can call a due on sale. Okay, so and anything can trigger that. It could be the homeowner, like I said earlier, calling in and letting the bank know that, hey, are they paying up to date? Yes, I sold the property. The homeowner never really understood what they got into. Usually they don't. Okay, and they're not trying to protect you. Plus, if they would, they're not that loyal to you. They're loyal to making sure that that $215,000 loan does not default. Okay, so somebody says, Lane, that's not how I would JV on this. I would have them show me the process and supply the necessary docs. Just take an assignment. Yes. So I get what J Paul is saying. You get some cash, but way more knowledge. All right. So that's true. If somebody claims they can do subject to, pass the lead across to them. Okay. And make sure you collect your assignment up front. Okay. Don't get involved directly or say, I want to, I want to see everything happening. Again, this is too much of an headache for you. I would rather just put a house under contract and sell the contract all day long and be out of the situation completely. Now, I'm not responsible for any loans. Okay? All right. So that's what he's talking about. Just take an assignment fee and walk. Okay? You get the necessary documents. Okay? But again, like I said, getting the documents is another headache entirely. This seller does not sound motivated at all. They're probably not going to give you all kind of weird documents signed. They're probably not going to do that. People that are motivated, they don't care about what documents they sign. They don't care about $20,000. They just want to walk. That house has become complete liability for them. Okay. If there's anything in between, it's possible, but it's just not. I don't look for that. Okay. It's a surprise when it happens. Okay. It's possible that somebody could be motivated, but they still want $20,000. But it's usually not. Okay. And when that happens to me, I've had very, very easy deals where I'm like, that doesn't sound like a typical, but it was that simple, but it became a surprise. I'm like, oh wow, they really didn't care. But they just wanted 20,000. But usually they have some equity in the property, like a lot of equity. They have 50% equity, 75% equity in the property. In this scenario, there's literally less than 1% of equity in the property. Okay? If you understand the value of time, you will know what I mean by saying that. Okay? All right, so okay, I think I misunderstood your comment. You meant either subject to or JV. Yeah. All right, so let's keep going here. Subject to on the $215,000, create a second lien note for $25,000 to pay him for his equity. Okay, so when you create a note, you can create a note all you want, but a note doesn't mean cash. Okay, right? I've made money from creating notes before. We couldn't walk away with anything. We created a note, and then a few months down the line, somebody paid us. Okay, somebody paid us. Probably almost a year after that, I got a surprise $5,000 in the mail. Okay, my partner at the time, uh, he got a call and they said they were selling the property, and we got paid. Okay, now here's how that works. Let me explain to you how that works. Okay, when you talk about equity, equity is not just cash. It doesn't have the same as cash value in your pocket. Equity has other factors involved, like time. Okay, so for example, you can have $60,000 of equity in your property. Does that mean you can turn that to cash right now? No, not necessarily. So there's time. There's also a market, the market environment. All right, what's the feel of the market atmosphere? Like, like comparables. Like, so for example, if you have $60,000 in equity in a property, for you to get that money as cash out, the bank that's going to give you that money will have to make sure that the property has comparables in the area that justify the value you're claiming. That takes time. Okay, that's going to take time to make that, to get that to happen like that. And if it's typically anything less than 10% of the value of the property, it's a waste. You're wasting your time. That's not enough spread to be even calling it equity. Okay. For me personally, this is just my estimate, my opinion. If it's not up to 50% equity, I don't waste my time trying to approach the bank or trying to extract that cash out of the deal. It's just not worth it. Okay. So you could create a note all you want, it's just paper. Okay. But that's not going to turn to cash. The person that's looking for $20,000, they want that $20,000 now. They're not motivated enough to wait for 12 months before they sell the property later to collect their $20,000. They want 20,000 to walk, remember? Okay? So this is a fail. And in the option to settle the $25,000 note for $15,000 in cash, okay, so this is you assuming you could sell the note. There's a lot of gimmicky trainings out there that you can buy and sell notes. Okay, people that buy notes, they don't want to buy for the value of the note. They want to buy it at a discount. Okay, in cash, if you and your assignee can execute the settlement within 120 days. Remember, these people don't have 120 days to wait for their. If they have 120 days, they would list this property on the market. Okay, they will list that property on the market and they will pay an agent 3% or whatever that is, right? Sometimes they can pay an agent for $500 cash flat, okay? So the agency where my father hangs his license would collect $500 cash and not care about any other commissions after, and they will list your property for you. You'll be responsible for staging the property and making sure it sell, but your property will get the exposure of all the MLS. Okay, so they don't have 120 days. If they did, they would list it with an agent for $500. Like all of this headache right here is worth more than $500 for the homeowner. They don't want to deal, or for the seller. They don't want to deal with that. All right? They're not motivated. Remember, based on the numbers we're looking at. Okay. So let's look at this here closer. For $15,000 in cash, right? A $25,000 note, I would not pay $15,000 for it. Okay. I will pay $2,500 for a $2,500 note. Sure. After making sure that the note is actually worth $25,000. Okay. So, for example, if a property is worth 250,000, no, let me use this example. This property is worth 265, right? They owe 215 on it, and then there's a note for $215,000, right? I would not. That's too close. I would not be paying 25 or $15,000. That means I only got a discount of $10,000. No, I would not be paying that for 215. I will pay 10%. I will get a 90%. Right? How do I know? Because think of collection agencies, right? Uh, uh, the reason why I never advise people to pay collection agencies because the collection agency purchased that note for 10% or less of the value of the actual note, right? So you owe a company $2,000. The agency paid $200. The collection agency paid $200 for that note for the account, right? And then they turn around, they keep calling you so they can collect how much from you? They're looking to collect maybe 50%. Because if they collect 50% of the account, which is the account is $2,000, if they collect 50%, that's $1,000. They pay $200 for it. That's a profit of $800 for them. Okay, so if you're in the business of buying notes, you don't want to be paying $15,000, like literally over 50% of the note. No, you don't want to. Okay, just like when we put a house under contract for wholesaling, you don't want to pay more than 65%. You don't want to fund the deal more than 65%. At worst case scenario, 70% of the deal, right? Okay, so is that making sense? So this numbers is still not adding up. Creating a note is meaningless, okay? Because note doesn't turn to cash, and they want cash. They want to walk with cash. They're not motivated. That's really what I'm getting from this, okay? Haven't got a deal done yet, and just hearing about subject to following. Okay, so Admire says, Miss Hunt says, I think it's a hint. I think that's a woman. Yeah, that's a woman. Wholesaling is just one part of actually being a wholesaler. Okay, all right. Think of yourself as a problem solver. So yes, subject to is one way to get this deal going. All right. So get this deal going doesn't mean you're gonna close the deal. Okay, there are too many deals over time that we get going that became a waste of time, time which is much more valuable than money. Okay, and so because of my time and experience, I don't waste my time on this type of scenario unless I'm creating content like I'm doing with you right now, creating a training, right? So let's look a little closer. Problem solver. Problem solving, Yes, in business as entrepreneurs, not just wholesalers, you are a problem solver. Okay, and I already gave you the best way to solve this problem. Okay, number one, there has to be a problem to be solving the problem. If you don't have a motivated seller, that's not a problem. Then they don't have a problem. They are looking for retail money on their property. $240,000 asking on 265 is retail deal. That's retail. That's not the business you're in as a wholesaler. Okay. Now, if you were a realtor, you can solve that problem by listing the property on the market and charging them a fee of $500. Okay. Or 3% of the actual listing, depending on what kind of agency you work for. Okay. Like that, you can do like that. You could get paid like that. You could solve a problem. The problem will be, I want to sell my property. Okay, I'll help you sell it. Okay. In this situation, the problem here is I want to sell my property. I'll help you sell it. That's a realtor's job. That's a real estate agent's job. As a wholesaler, the problem you want to solve is for motivated sellers. Okay, you have resources to help a motivated seller get rid of their property now. That's the idea. Okay, but the numbers must make sense. They want to pawn their house, but they don't want to pawn the house. That's what you have right here. Okay, so there's no real problem. So you cannot solve a problem that doesn't exist. That's the problem with what I'm seeing here. This is just my opinion. Okay, so she's saying subject to is one way to get this deal done. I don't see a subject to here too. Subject to is when there's equity. Subject to works better when there's a lot more equity than we have here. Okay, equity plus motivated seller. Okay, equity can be compensated in place of the 20,000. If they had $100,000 of equity, which is basic, not 100,000, 130, which is basically about 50%, right? If they have that and they want $20,000, they have the right to want $20,000, and you will still make good money, and you can still subject to. Okay. Now, some people say subject to is wouldn't be needed in that case. Well, here's the thing. Okay. I'm just saying it's too close. I already made my case that I don't deal with subject tos and lease options because that's not what I do. If that's what you do, then you can do that. In that case, the only extra problem you need to solve right now is make sure that $1,100 of mortgage is paid for and there's room for errors. If there's vacancy factor, make sure you factor in vacancy factor. There will be times that the property may become vacant, right? And you still have to continue to pay down the $215,000. But remember, when you're paying down the $215,000, yes, you could be building equity over time like that if that's what you love to do. That's just not my cup of tea. Okay. And for most people that I know, they rather not deal with that kind of headache too. Okay. But there are people that do. Okay. So subject to. Okay, so that's today's part of the series. Make sure you download the book, smartrealestateWholesaling.com. SmartrealestateWholesaling.com. You can see the link on the screen. Make sure you download the book and take advantage of the information in the book. It's absolutely for free. And make sure you stay plugged in on this because this is getting better and better as you get through. Make sure you don't miss any part of this series. And hopefully you've been enlightened and educated. And I'll see you on the next one. And peace.